get sympathy, except for the brain.
It's dark and I'm looking.
Why is it that every organ in our body can get sick and we get sympathy except for the brain? Mental illness affects 1 in 4 people. That's more than heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. Let's go over some of those misconceptions and stereotypes surrounding mental illness. Depression has nothing to do with being lazy or weak. Instead, it originates from a brain chemistry misfunction or oftentimes genetic predispositions. So medication and therapy often help in the recovery process. You cannot tell if someone has an eating disorder just by looking at them. Many individuals with eating disorders will try very hard to hide their symptoms or behaviors from others. And people with anorexia don't stop eating completely. That would result in death in a very short amount of time. People with bulimia do not always purge from vomiting. Sometimes people will take diuretics, sometimes laxatives, and other times over-exercise. In reality, individuals who suffer from eating disorders are some of the most humble and caring individuals that you will ever meet. How would I know? I was one of them. And I went to treatment with many more amazing young men and women. Eating disorders are real, complex medical and psychiatric illnesses. They usually have a genetic or biological base and typically co-occur with depression, anxiety, or obsessive-compulsive. They're not just a lifestyle choice. Depression is an unsuccessful word. It doesn't really do the illness any justice because sadness is already in the sphere of normal human emotions. It's when you can't find joy in normal everyday tasks, when getting out of bed or doing the laundry is more difficult than climbing Mount Everest. Your head is bombarded with thoughts of hopelessness and despair. Maybe you realize that you shouldn't feel like this, but asking for help seems more difficult than this thing that people call happiness. But if you get help, you won't regret it. Being a robot isn't fun. I guarantee that once you get help, you'll feel 1,000,000 times better. I was diagnosed with depression 11 years ago, and I didn't really remember what it was like to smile. I mean, I knew what it was like to fake it, but I'm still so thankful that my friends helped me by referring me to the school guidance counselor in 10th grade. As embarrassed as I was, I am now able to look back and be thankful that I had friends that cared about me. They didn't judge me, and they just wanted to help. If you have a friend or loved one suffering with depression, don't judge them. Be there for them. If all they want to do is lie on the couch and stare at the ceiling, then you can be there next to them lying on the couch and staring at the ceiling. Ask a professional for help because it will get better. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Alright, so many of you know the symptoms of eating disorders can be categorized into anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge purge eating disorder. There's also EDNOS, which is eating disorder not otherwise specified. And sometimes the symptoms can be taken from a variety of categories, and sometimes it's just not all of the symptoms in one category. Doesn't mean it's any less serious of a type of eating disorder. Although society perpetuates the problem of eating disorders with the beauty ideals of thinness in magazines, that's not where it originated from, because medical history states that eating disorders stem all the way back to the 1800s, meaning that it's much deeper than the wanting to conform to beauty ideals, which, does contribute, but it doesn't originate from that. So, when someone you love is struggling with an eating disorder, thoughts and feelings, it can be really difficult to know what to do or where to go. Oftentimes the individual is out of touch with reality and they won't really recognize that they have a problem, which is similar to drug and alcohol addiction. Anyway, so like I said before, it all started for me when I was in 10th grade and my friends expressed their concern about my new habits to the school guidance counselor. And as mad as I was and embarrassed as I was still grateful to get the help that I needed, even if it took me a while to see that. Because I don't think that I would have been able to ask for help on my own. In briefly sharing some of my experience, I'm hoping to give you all the courage to speak up and get the help that you need, or help a friend or loved one in need. Now for the part that wasn't so helpful. Initially, my mom was really scared and concerned for me, so she would bribe me and blackmail me and say things like, I'm not going to buy you new school clothes until you gain weight and eat, or all of your friends are talking about how skinny you look. Comments like that don't help. Family meals were a disaster. I remember sitting and staring at my plate with tears rolling down my face while my whole family stared at me, waiting for me to eat. Singling someone out is counterproductive. And telling someone what to do doesn't help. Telling someone what to do usually backfires. The more my mom told me to eat and gain weight, the less I wanted to. So, when helping a friend or loved one, instead ask how they're doing. Ask if there's any way you can help, or if they want to go grab some coffee. Don't bring up the issue of food, because contrary to popular belief, eating disorders are not usually about the food. Everyone's different, but generally eating disorders have a lot to do with issues with control, self-esteem, or shame and guilt. The illness itself even has a loud voice saying that you're not good enough at all times. Also, it's not helpful to bring up how that person looks. Just don't go there. Whether positive or negative, it's usually misconstrued and distorted in the brain. One of the most supportive and helpful things that my mom did for me happened when I went to a family gathering. We were having a huge pizza party, and as soon as I learned that we were having pizza, I automatically went into panic mode. But it was awesome because my mom came up next to me with her plate of pizza and said, hey, why don't you come over and sit by me and we'll have our pizza together. That just really made me feel like I belonged and I wasn't singled out, and I was able to engage in the fun with everyone. So if you want to help someone, that would be something good to do. Hey, let's eat this together. In helping someone with mental illness, you can't cure them. You can only love them. Love them without condition and without judgment. Be there for them. Listen to them. Encourage them. Find their strengths. Dealing with an eating disorder or depression or any other mental illness can be very difficult. Mental illness often ruptures relationships and pushes people away. However, with treatment and therapy, they can be overcome. Although it's been far from easy, my journey has really made me a stronger person and has really made me more wiser and able to deal with life and more mature. So my struggles really have made me stronger, as the cliche saying goes.
Anxiety disorders are one of the most common mental illnesses in the United States, yet only 1/3 of those who are suffering will receive treatment. Having an anxiety disorder doesn't make you crazy, and individuals with anxiety disorders can't just snap out of it. One type of anxiety disorder is generalized anxiety disorder. This is different than just having everyday worries. Individuals with generalized anxiety disorder have extreme worry in all different types of situations. They often assume that the worst will happen. Another type of anxiety disorder is social anxiety disorder. Social anxiety disorder can be either specific, such as a fear of eating in front of people, or general, as in any social situation. Having a social anxiety disorder can impact school or work and can affect forming and maintaining friendships. When I was 10 years old, I started having symptoms of social anxiety disorder. It started in gym class because I was uncoordinated so other kids would make fun of me. Since I didn't want to participate in gym, I'd find some way to get out of it without getting in trouble, like talking to the teacher or going to the nurse. When I was 15, it started getting worse. I didn't want to have to do anything that involved coordination in front of my friends, so if I was going to hang out with someone and I thought there was a possibility that they might want to do something like hacky sack or playing pool, I would physically start shaking. I wouldn't be able to sleep beforehand, and sometimes I would get sick to my stomach because I was so worried about it. Usually I would just back out of my plans so that I could feel better. My relationship with my parents was strained because they couldn't figure out why I would seem so excited to do something but then would back out at the last minute. They described me as being like a roller coaster. Because of my tendency to back out of plans, I didn't have many friends, and the ones that I did have told me that there was something wrong with me and that I should be medicated. This made me feel more isolated and like I was crazy. My junior year of college, my boyfriend told me that if I couldn't ever be around people the way that everyone else was, that I would be alone and unhappy for the rest of my life. This wasn't very helpful. What did help, though, was going to counseling. I learned how to manage my anxiety and how to accept myself, and that it's okay not to like certain things like crowded parties or crowded bars. I also developed my own hobbies and interests, which I didn't really have before. My one regret is that I didn't get help sooner. After I started counseling, I was amazed at how much better my life was. And it's sad to think that I didn't need to suffer with my anxiety for as long as I did.
To a friend or family member of struggling with eating disorder symptoms, there are some things to keep in mind. For example, you want to use I statements. Saying, I'm worried about you will go a lot farther than you're worrying me. Also, pick a safe place where they feel able to open up to you. Don't take on the role of the counselor or therapist. Don't dominate the conversation. Listen to them. Don't judge them. And approach them one-on-one and use helpful resources, other counselors you know in the area to help.
Winona State has free counseling services available for students. They're located in the Integrated Wellness Center on the second floor. You can make an appointment, or they have walk-in services available if you are in crisis. Wednesdays from 4 to 5, there's a general support group with the therapy dog, Winston, that is also free to students. Stigma is one of the reasons that people don't seek help when they need it. In order to change stigma, you can educate others about the issue of mental illness. You can change your language. You can share your story, and you can join Active Minds,
a club on the WSU campus that works to educate and advocate for changing the discussion around mental health issues and reducing the stigma around those things, and trying to use less words like crazy and psycho and things like that, and just really be more respectful of people's issues that they're dealing with and bring those to light.
Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. You wouldn't say to someone with Alzheimer's, "Where'd you put your keys? Come on, you should know this. Get with it." And you definitely wouldn't tell someone going through chemo to suck it up.
How many negative names can you think of for someone that has ALS or cancer? How many negative names can you think of for someone that has a mental illness?